Hey, thanks for watching Java with Java AZ. Very much appreciate it. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day to you and to everybody. As is tradition, a little bit about the U.S. Constitution, which I and many people feel is the greatest legal document in history. The Magna Carta was also important because that was the first document that actually limited what government could do to citizens, and it was the seed of creation for the Constitution. Now, the United States Constitution, oldest one still in use, and it's been the model for over 100 different democracies over the years. The Constitution combines liberty with institutional structure. Best way to do it. The problem is, people talk, you hear different things, how it's being taught, people who don't know what you're talking about talk about it, or it's not taught at all. So there's a lot of misconceptions on what the Constitution actually is. And I'm going to start with the First Amendment, because there's several parts of that. And the first one I'm going to talk about is freedom of speech. That's one that's misunderstood because it restricts what government can do against citizens. Can't prevent anybody from talking. People have the right to say what they want, gather in public places, anything they like to do. Government cannot prevent that. And there's a difference between speaking out loud and rioting. Just so you know, speaking out loud, legal. Rioting, crime. Keep that in mind too. It's all based on responsible speech. And because, we'll get into this later, but there's a check and balance in government. There's a check and balance between the Constitution, what it prevents government from doing, and individual activities. So with responsible speech, you can't yell fire in a crowded room, for instance. That's illegal. You're causing a panic. The freedom of speech does not apply to people, companies, corporations, businesses. So if somebody would come up to me and call me a son of a bitch, or I called somebody, nose picker, nothing they can do about it. However, can't stop me from saying it, but I could be sued for libel, slander, just like the other person. If I tell somebody, they're the most wonderful person in the world, chances are they're not going to try to stop my free speech, but even that has consequences. They might give me a hug, a handshake, pat on the back, high five. Say something really nasty to someone, libel and slander, maybe punched in the nose, always a possibility. So, freedom of speech is to give citizens access to be able to say what they want without government retribution. Another part of the First Amendment is religious freedom. Now, everybody always talks about separation of church and state. That is not in the Constitution. That actually comes from a letter Thomas Jefferson had written, and that has somehow managed to carry through the years as the overall doctrine, which is not accurate. He was just describing what that particular part of the First Amendment was meant to do. The Constitution's First Amendment regarding religion has two parts. Congress, see if I get this right, Congress shall make no law, Congress shall make no law and establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Hey, almost got it in one try. The first part of that is called the Establishment Clause. Congress should make no law respecting an establishment of a religion. That means out of the blue, Congress cannot vote to make the Star Trek mythos or Lord of the Rings a religion, even though some of us might like that. So what they can do is they can't establish a religion, can't also favor one religion over another, or religion over a non-religion. So keep that in mind too. The second part of that, prohibiting the free exercise of religion, that's the exercise clause. People are free to believe what they want, worship how they want, practice their religious activities freely without government interference. There are some restrictions. Anything that would endanger public safety, break the law, rights of others, can't do it. So no human sacrifice. However, animal sacrifice is permitted. Otherwise, the government would be interfering with somebody's practice of religion. So, coffee time. And yes, I am back to using the only coffee mug I have with an American flag on it, and I need coffee so bad, I forgot it was on this side of the mug. Usual coffee, cream sugar, milk, sugar. Anyway, hope you're enjoying your beverage. The next one is, my personal opinion, is the most irritating one, the Electoral College. This was designed to reinforce the federal structure of the United States. It makes candidates have to get a wider sense of agreement among the citizens to be elected to federal office. In the states, it would be the same way. Some states are blocked off in wards, districts, parishes, boroughs, whatever it might be. City council, same way. But for the federal government, especially with president, vice president, the Electoral College was designed to garner equality, individual voices versus the balance of states. So the best example I can give for this, if one state has 6 million people in it and another state has 2 million, if it was a popular vote, the state with the 6 million people is going to be heard the most, and the little states won't be. So this gives citizens living in the smaller states as much of a voice as the more populous areas. That's the reason why we have the Electoral College, and that's based on number of population, so the number of seats in Congress, the House of Representatives, and the U.S. Senate. Anyone who argues that the popular vote is better is not thinking that anything that they would say is a flaw with the Electoral College is actually the reason why it works. It prevents blocks of highly populated areas from overrunning the voices of citizens in smaller states. Otherwise, as an example, Hawaii, Montana, Connecticut would always lose to Texas, Florida, and California because of population density. So Electoral College balances that so everybody has an equal voice. And it's the states that in this particular case would elect a president and vice president. There's another one that's been talked about more over the last, 5-10 years, and that's what's known as the Supremacy Clause. This is where federal government law is overrides state law, supersedes it, unless the state law is, I can't say that. I was going to say unless the state law is more constraining or more thought out, detailed than the federal law, but that doesn't apply either. Federal law overrules whatever state law may be. So that's the reason why marijuana, for instance, federal law says that marijuana is illegal which is the reason why states that have made illegal any dispensaries cannot use banks for their money, because banks are controlled by the federal government treasury, or they are part of the treasury. That's the best example I can give. All the judges are required to follow federal law. So it's Constitution, state law, state Constitution, U.S., state Constitution, state law goes from there. And actually, it's U.S. Constitution, United States Uniform Code, and then it goes down to the states. I'm not an attorney. This is just what I've learned. What the Supremacy Clause is supposed to do is create a unified legal system, so we're all working by the same rules. It balances what citizens can do that's not in the Constitution as well. For instance, the Constitution doesn't say anything specific about NASA. So if any state wanted to build their own space administration agency, go right ahead. We see that happening in the private sector right now. So that's the reason why the Supremacy Clause is in there. It's talked about a lot, but nobody follows it. Sorry, raspy voice. When it's 115 degrees and 2% humidity in the desert, we tend to dry out a little bit. Another one that's in the Constitution is the separation of powers, which is also acts as a check and balance. So we have the executive branch, which is the president, the legislative branch, which is the U.S. Congress, broken into the House of Representatives, which represents the people, which is why there's a lot of Congress people, and then the Senate. U.S. Senate originally was speaking on behalf of the states. They were appointed by governors, but that changed with Woodrow Wilson, I believe it was, the 17th Amendment to the Constitution, making senators, U.S. senators, an elected position. Too many people overestimate what branches can do, whether it's Congress, presidency, Supreme Court, whatever it might be, or the judicial system. Excuse me. The president cannot write law. Judges cannot write law. Congress writes law. Congress cannot enforce law. That's the judicial system. Congress cannot implement laws or policies. That's the executive branch, presidency. So that's the reason why there's three of them, checks and balances. This also applies to us. We have our own checks and balances. First Amendment speech. Say something nice, you get a hug. Say something bad, you get a punch in the nose. So take a look at it. You got to read the Constitution for yourself. If you really want to do yourself a favor, learn how to read cursive so you can actually read the original document. The U.S. Constitution was written in everyday language so that the average U.S. citizen American could read it. Not everybody went to school, but it could be understood by everybody. Somebody read it to them. It's not written in legalese, as the word would be said now. U.S. Constitution gives more liberty to the people by restricting what government can and cannot do. Because nobody wants government overreaching in their lives. Taxes is a good example of that. For us, as I mentioned, personal responsibility is our check and balance with the liberty we're afforded through the U.S. Constitution. I can't stress enough. Just read it yourself. There's many places you can go get a copy. Copies online. Many of the historical sites throughout the country offer free copies of the U.S. Constitution that are accurately translated without opinion. So, but take a look at yourself. Read through the whole thing. You'll get a better understanding. So I'm going to finish off my coffee before I evaporate in the dry desert air. And I want to wish you a happy 4th of July, Independence Day, and great day, great week, and a great year.